Our thoughts are often like invisible chains that we ourselves reinforce day after day, not realizing how they undermine our inner freedom. Imagine an early morning when the world is still dark and cool and you are determined to go for a run. In the silence, your breathing becomes the only discernible sound. And then, as if out of nowhere, you are bombarded with a barrage of thoughts. Is everything right in your life? What is wrong with you? Or on the contrary, is everything going as it should? These thoughts, like annoying guests, flood your mind, press on you, and it seems that this flow is impossible to stop. Isn't this a familiar situation? But here's what's really striking. It's not just a random collection of random questions. It is a sign that your mind, insidious and elusive, is bent on total domination over you. Have you ever wondered why thoughts have such incredible persistence and irresistibility? In this study, we will unlock the secret of how to curb this indomitable stream of thoughts in your head, not for a brief moment, but for real, so that you can find the peace of mind you've been longing for. But first, you need to accept one harsh truth. Thoughts are not you. Yes, such a statement may cause discomfort, as most of us are used to identifying with our thoughts, decisions, and plans. However, it's worth realizing that the mind is just a tool, not your essence. It is this mistaken identification that makes us prisoners of our own mind, robbing us of our freedom of choice and peace. Before diving into this fascinating discussion, the author encourages viewers, if they are moved by his words, to subscribe and leave a short 6-word comment. This action, which takes only a moment, will help spread these ideas in the face of information oversaturation. The author, while remaining anonymous, emphasizes his goal to convey meaningful meanings to his audience. He also announces the creation of a Telegram channel where even more material on this topic can be found, and invites everyone to join in the joint search for self-knowledge. The author expresses his love and appreciation while remaining a nobody. He shares the observation that trying to stop the flow of thoughts only makes them more active, just as waving your arms around attracts more mosquitoes. This concept was masterfully illustrated by Robert Adams, a spiritual counselor whose deep insights are universally respected. Adams likened trying to curb the mind to trying to catch a thief by using another thief, emphasizing that the greater the effort, the greater the resistance from the mind. The mind, according to the author, appears as a clever deceiver, eager to maintain its dominance and willing to fight for its existence. He likens the mind to a major enemy that behaves like a capricious child whose demands for attention are only intensified by attempts to placate it. The author suggests recalling recent cases in which attempts to quiet the mind have led to more intrusive thoughts, and explains that the mind itself is used to control the mind, creating a vicious circle. Striving to win this internal struggle is doomed to failure. Let us turn to an illustrative example from cinematography. The cult film Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio brilliantly shows how an idea is born, which like a virus takes hold of the mind and grows to colossal proportions, becoming beyond the control of human will. The idea takes root, changing the perception of reality, and it is no longer we who control it, but it controls us. This is so similar to our everyday life, isn't it? When we wake up in the morning with an insignificant thought, we instantly inflate it to unbelievable proportions, allowing it to dominate the whole day, directing our actions. And the bitter truth is that our attempts to control our thoughts are futile. It is control that gives them power. Any attempt to suppress a thought only provokes its more powerful return. Is it any wonder that most techniques for finding peace of mind fail? Meditative practices, yoga classes, breathing exercises, all of these can only bring a temporary lull, after which the thoughts come back with renewed vigor. Let's imagine a situation. You are deep in breathing practice, concentrated, your breathing is even and calm, and suddenly an extraneous thought arises in your mind. What are your actions? You begin to analyze it, trying to return to breathing, but this return requires effort, and the stronger your desire to return to breathing, the more active the thought becomes. There is a vicious circle. Imagine a situation. You are in yoga class, immersed in meditative state, but in the depths of your consciousness, suddenly there are questions. Am I doing the asana correctly? Am I slouching? When is this class going to end? This is a manifestation of the inner voice that is constantly commenting and imposing its judgments. What happens if you stop paying attention to it? Most likely, it will fall silent, realizing that it has stopped listening. A similar process happens with thoughts. If you stop feeding them with your energy, do not fight them, do not try to change them, they lose their power. Stop resisting them. Fighting thoughts is nothing more than fighting your own reflection. It won't go away until you look away. Consider the tragic fate of Jay Gatsby, a character in Fitzgerald's novel. His obsession with bringing back the past became his guiding star, and at the same time the cause of his death. He could not let go of this thought, and it led him to a sad ending. So it is in the life of each of us. If we cling to our thoughts, we become afraid of them, destroying our inner balance. Let's imagine that we are all a kind of Jay Gatsby in our own heads. We hold on to ideas and thoughts that we think give our lives meaning, but they end up becoming our inner jailers. And no matter how hard we try to free ourselves from them, they find loopholes to return. Why does this happen? Attachment to thoughts is a kind of addiction. We become dependent on their constant presence as if they were an integral part of our personality. However, what happens when the mind takes over? One falls into the trap of no longer experiencing the reality of the present moment. Mental constructs obscure the true reality, plunging him deeper and deeper into a world of fantasy. These thought formations, merging with his sense of self, blur the line between personality and the mind's creations. Most frighteningly, they eventually begin to dictate behavior. Day after day, troubling questions arise. Am I doing the right thing? What will people around me say? And paradoxically, the more effort put into suppressing these obsessions, the more intense they become. It is like a never-ending internal struggle where victory is unattainable. An individual drowning in his thoughts loses his bearings in the present. His mind is like a faulty compass pointing in the wrong direction. He lives in a world of illusion, constantly analyzing and rethinking, as if this would give him power over the situation. But instead of control, there is only growing chaos. Why is it so hard to let go of the constant stream of doubts and desires? Perhaps people cling to them in the belief that it protects them, but in reality it only reinforces the inner disharmony. Now, it is worth looking at the practical application. In reality, things are simpler than they seem, but more complicated than we would like them to be. When a thought arises, one should not go into analyzing it. You should not try to replace it with something more positive. Avoid judging it as right or wrong. Do not seek to get rid of it. It is enough to simply register. It is just a thought. It is similar to watching clouds. They appear and disappear, but no one tries to keep them or change them. There is a simple but effective method available to everyone. You need to sit comfortably, let your body relax, and close your eyes. Then you should concentrate on your thoughts, watching their movement like watching the passing clouds. Thoughts arise and disappear like clouds sliding across the sky, and the observer only impassively records their presence. There is no need to go into their essence, no need to try to stop them or analyze them. The main thing is to let thoughts pass freely by without lingering on them. This method requires regular practice, but over time you may notice that the thoughts become less intrusive and the pauses between them increase. This is the first step to finding inner peace. However, it is worth noting that it is not only the thought process that plays a role in causing the flow of thoughts. The body can also be a source of tension, which in turn fuels mental activity. This tension triggers a whole cascade of thoughts. One of the most effective ways to work with thoughts is to influence the body. As an example, we can recall a scene from the famous movie Rocky, where the main character trains until he is completely exhausted. At such moments, his mind ceases to play a key role, only the body and its actions remain. When a person physically loads himself, the body begins to free the mind from excessive noise. It is no coincidence that running, yoga, or even ordinary walks in the fresh air help to air out the head. The next time your thoughts start to come to a head, try just going out for a jog. But it's important to realize that the goal is not to run away from the thoughts, but to let your body take some of the strain. It is physical activity that is sometimes the key to calming the mind. The author admits that he has previously criticized some breathing practices, but now emphasizes their potential benefits when applied correctly. One effective method, in his opinion, is the square breathing technique. It consists of breathing slowly and rhythmically. Inhale for 4 counts, then hold the breath for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, and another 4 counts before inhaling again. This method does not aim to get rid of thoughts completely, but it effectively slows down the pace of their flow. Breathing and the workings of the mind are in close relationship, and when the breath calms down, the mind also gradually slows down its activity. The author invites the reader to try this technique in practice. Close your eyes and perform several cycles of square breathing, noting how the intensity of thoughts gradually decreases. Then the author reveals the secret promised at the beginning of the video. Many people wonder, how can one act effectively in the world if one stops thinking? Wouldn't this lead to passivity? The author claims that the opposite actually happens. A person becomes much more productive. When the flow of thoughts subsides, as in the case of the sages, a person continues to act, but without unnecessary inattention. His actions become spontaneous, coming from his true nature rather than from habitual patterns of thinking. As Lao Tzu's saying in the Tao Te Ching says, "He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know." Freeing oneself from the power of thoughts, one gains an intuitive understanding of how to act in any situation, trusting the natural course of life. Let's dive into a deeper understanding. Let's imagine our consciousness as a boundless ocean. On its surface, the waves are raging. This is the flow of our thoughts, which are constantly changing and impermanent. However, in the depths of this ocean, there is absolute silence and peace. Our goal is to learn to dive into these depths without letting the surface waves carry us away. It is like watching a movie when we are so involved in the story that we forget about the screen on which the image is projected. But the screen always remains unchanged and calm, being the basis for everything that happens. In the same way, our true self is always calm and unperturbed, no matter what thoughts are running through our minds. An analogy can be made with the sky and the clouds. Our consciousness is a boundless sky, and our thoughts are clouds which can be dark and stormy or light and fluffy. The sky, on the other hand, remains always unchanged, unaffected by passing clouds. Similarly, our true self is not affected or changed by passing thoughts. Now let's look at how these principles can be applied to ordinary life. Many of us live in a constant rush, jumping from one task to another, from one thought to another. We rarely take the time to stop and just be in the present moment. But it is in these moments that we can experience true peace. As a practice, try the following. Throughout the day, every hour, stop for 1 minute. Just sit or stand without taking any action. Don't try to meditate or control the flow of your thoughts. Just observe what is happening around and within you without evaluating or trying to change anything. This exercise may seem simple at first glance, but its impact is profound. It teaches us to be present in the present moment without being immersed in an endless stream of thoughts about the past or the future. Let's dive into the world of movies and remember the iconic Matrix. Neo, the main character, was tasked with learning to recognize true reality rather than its illusory interpretation. Similarly, it is important for each of us to realize that our thoughts are just thoughts, not an immutable truth or absolute reality. Another cornerstone is our perception of negative thoughts. Often we feel fearful of them, seeking to suppress them, thereby only increasing their impact. Instead, let's try looking at negative thoughts with curiosity. When such a thought arises, don't push it away, but ask yourself questions. What is its origin? What is it trying to convey to me? Now let's turn to how the ability to stop the flow of thoughts can benefit our relationships with others. When the mind is constantly busy swarming with thoughts, we often miss the essence of what others are saying while we are absorbed in formulating an answer or evaluating what we have heard. The next time you have a conversation, try to immerse yourself in the words of the person you are talking to. Don't rush to think about what you will say next. Don't make judgments, just listen. You'll be surprised how much deeper and richer your relationship will become when you master the art of true listening. It reminds us of the image of Forrest Gump, who simply sat on a bench and listened to the stories of passers-by. He didn't evaluate, he didn't analyze, he didn't try to impose his opinion. He just listened, and that made him an exceptional interlocutor. Let us now consider the phenomenon of creativity, mesmerizing in its incomprehensibility. Outstanding creators, be they artists or writers, often mention the state of flow, that magical moment when rational thinking recedes into the background, giving way to the free outpouring of creative energy. In this state, a person stops thinking about his or her actions and simply creates, as if guided by an invisible force. Pablo Picasso's famous phrase, "If I knew what art was, I wouldn't do it," deeply reflects this thought. It points to the fact that true creativity is not born out of painstaking reflection, but has its origins in something deeper, in the very essence of human nature. Next time you immerse yourself in the creative process, be it painting, writing, or any other endeavor, try letting go of mind control. Simply allow your hands and words to move freely, unconstrained by grades or the pursuit of perfection. Allow spontaneity, let the creative impulse flow unimpeded. Now let's turn to fear, that all-encompassing emotion that can completely paralyze our actions. But what is fear but a projection of our thoughts about the future? It dwells exclusively in the realm of our consciousness, fueled by anxiety about coming events. By stopping the flow of thoughts, we rob fear of its power. In the present moment, in the here and now, fear does not exist. There is only reality as it is. We can remember the movie Fight Club, where the main character finds freedom only by giving up everything. This is a vivid metaphor for liberation from obsessive thoughts, paralyzing fears, and unjustified expectations. But what about our aspirations for the future, you might reasonably ask? Isn't it essential to think about upcoming events? Planning is certainly important, but we must distinguish between productive planning and obsessive worrying about the future. Rational planning comes from a state of mental clarity. A person analyzes the available data, makes informed decisions, and then lets the situation go. He does not allow himself to incessantly run through possible variants of events in his head. This can be compared to the preparation of a professional athlete for a responsible competition. He trains hard, develops a strategy, but when the moment of truth comes, he discards all unnecessary thoughts and simply acts. Now let us turn to the question of happiness. Many of us mistakenly believe that happiness is the result of achieving specific goals or acquiring desirable things. But what if true happiness is the absence of suffering? What if happiness is our natural state of being free from disturbing thoughts? The Buddha taught that the root of all suffering is our desires. But what is desire but the thought of what we lack? When we tame the flow of thoughts, we tame our desires. And then we find fulfillment in the present moment. This is not a call to give up all goals and aspirations, but it does mean that we can pursue them in a state of inner peace, rather than in a state of constant worry and dissatisfaction. Think of the movie The Pursuit of Happiness. The main character pursues his goal with extraordinary persistence, but his true happiness comes not from achieving it, but from his love for his son and his ability to find joy in the most difficult circumstances. Dear audience, please accept our sincere apologies for possible errors in the presented material. Let me remind you that the author does not claim exclusivity and is not the original source of the concepts presented. This is, alas, the mechanism of the modern world, when ideas circulate and their appropriation would be incorrect. For this reason, the voicing of the text has been made possible through the use of artificial intelligence technology. If you find any inaccuracies or errors, we kindly ask you to report them. Your feedback will help us to further improve the quality of our content. Today's talk was devoted to ways of curbing the restless flow of thoughts, finding inner peace in the present moment, strengthening interpersonal relationships, unlocking creativity, overcoming fear, and finding true happiness. However, it is crucial to realize that all of this is not the final station, but only an exciting journey. It is not a goal to be achieved once and for all, but a continuous practice to be applied in every moment of our lives. Be patient with yourself. The mind, by nature, is prone to reflection, and it will take time to learn to be quiet. There is no need to berate yourself if you find yourself in a whirlpool of thoughts again and again. Just gently and lovingly bring your attention back to the present moment. As Eckhart Tolle so aptly put it, awareness is not what you achieve, it is who you are. So what is the next step? Now it's time to simply exist. Allow yourself to immerse yourself in the stillness of your mind, to experience its peace and depth. Savor the splendor of life unfolding right in front of you, in this very moment. For it is this moment that is the only thing we truly own, and it is where everything we will ever need is contained. It is here, in the present, that the very essence of our being pulsates, and there is no need to look for anything else.